Did you know when it comes down to your faith and your family, love matters most? This is an instant message. What's going on? I'm Cadence and welcome back to F1oRoneTV. We are a team of students, creatives, and youth pastors that want to make videos for you. We hope when you come to our channel you'll be challenged, encouraged, and inspired. So I want to say welcome back if you've been here before. If you're new here, make sure to hit the subscribe button right this second. Now in this series we'll talk about life from a picture-perfect family to a totally fractured. And as we do, no matter what your family looks like, family matters.
So there was this TV show that my wife and I watched a couple of years ago, and in one of the episodes it talked about what happens when you notice the little things that people do that are annoying, but you didn't know it was annoying until somebody told you. Like a couple things, for example, like chewing with your mouth open. I mean, a very annoying thing for some people, and a lot of people do it. You just don't notice it until someone brings it up. Or maybe the way somebody laughs. Again, something that could be very annoying to certain people and you don't understand it until someone brings it out. So the whole point of this episode was all these friends were pointing out what everybody did, and they called it like the glass breaking. And so once they realized somebody did something like chewing with their mouth open or the way they laughed, you would hear this glass breaking, and they couldn't unsee that forever. So maybe you've experienced something like this, where one of your friends pointed out something that one of your other friends did. And when that happened, the glass broke. And unfortunately now, every time you're around them, you can't help but see this thing. I think sometimes the same thing happens when we hang out with other people's families. Like you have your family, and it's all that you know. They have the things that they do that are good, and they have the things that they do that are bad, but you don't really know what's good and what's bad because it's all that you know. But then that day comes when you go to somebody else's house and you get to see how other people live. You get to see how other parents interact with each other and interact with their kids. And unfortunately for some of us, we've got some friends and we've been in some homes that are just better than ours. And when you get to see maybe how better people live or better people act, there's like this glass shattering moment where you realize that your family is broken. And it doesn't matter honestly who you are, whether you're a part of a good family or a bad family, everybody's family is fractured. And that's the whole point of the series that we're in, talking about family matters. Maybe your family lives in constant tension. Maybe you feel it in conflict with certain members of your family, like your mom and you just seem to always butt heads, or your dad just doesn't understand you, or your siblings are so selfish and never understanding of your situations. Or maybe you've discovered that your family lives with secrets. As you've gotten older, not only have you kind of seen things in a different light, but maybe you've discovered things about your family that have shaped and changed the way that you thought about your family. And for a lot of you, your family has experienced a fracture of some sort. Listen, families are fractured. Like, we go through things, we have hard times. And unfortunately, when that moment happens, that glass breaks, it fractures the reality and what we see. And so what happens is that causes us lots of pain. And that's typically when we respond in one of two ways. We either count our family out or we count ourselves out. You see, when we count our family out, it's really easy to use our family's mistakes as an excuse and a reason to not listen to them anymore. So, like, you hang out at somebody else's house, and maybe somebody's mom is like that weird, old school TV show mom who's got cookies waiting for you when you walk in and is like singing all the time, and maybe your mom doesn't do that. But that glass breaks, and you think, well, maybe my mom doesn't love me as much as other people's moms, and so I'm just not going to listen to her. Or maybe you've got a friend whose dad is just super understanding, always listening, always willing to let your friends do whatever they want to do, but maybe your dad's a little bit tough when it comes to the rules. Well, at some point we justify the fact that since my dad's not like their dad, I just won't listen anymore. Or maybe you find out one of those family secrets. As you get older, you start to discover more things about life, and because your mom and dad did some things, you feel like you could do some things. You see, it's really dangerous when we start to count our families out, and it's also dangerous when we start to count ourselves out. Sometimes our family dynamic is so fractured and so torn that it's just easy to say, you know what, I don't want to be a part of this whole situation anymore. I'm just waiting until I graduate high school and I can be out and I can be done and I don't have to be around these people anymore. Chances are you have probably felt the pull of wanting to pull away from your family. And I think sometimes in those moments, it just feels easier to do that. Like, you know the answer for yourself because you know yourself better than everybody else. And you don't want your family telling you what to do. But what if I told you, first off, that doesn't work. Families are fractured. It doesn't matter what kind of family they are. They all have issues. And what if the right answer wasn't pulling away from your family? What if the right answer was sticking it out? Because what if God could still do something great through your family? And what if God could do that great thing through you? Like, here's the good news about the scriptures. God has a long history of working with dysfunctional families. In the book of Hebrews, chapter 11, there's this verse, and it's called like the chapter of faith. And throughout the verse, the writer is talking about all these different people who did these incredible things for God. People like Abraham, people like Moses, people like David, people who like Samson and Samuel, people who, as it says, conquered kingdoms, enforced justice, obtained promises, and stopped the mouths of lions, who quenched the power of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, were made strong out of weakness, became mighty in war, and put foreign armies to flight. It says that these people helped women receive back their dead by resurrection. Pretty incredible stuff. But what you're going to find when you read through these people in this chapter of faith is all of them had dysfunctional families. I mean, Abraham, for example. Abraham was given this promise from God to have this family that would outnumber the stars, but Abraham's wife had such little faith. She was a constant discouragement on Abraham, and Abraham was actually unfaithful in the calling to God. And despite his unfaithfulness, God was faithful to him and still gave him that son. And that son had two other sons, a son named Jacob and a son named Esau, that the scriptures talk about. And these two brothers were at odds with each other, so much so that Jacob, the younger brother, actually tricked Esau and stole his inheritance from him, which caused a blood feud. Esau spent a lot of his life trying to kill Jacob, and Jacob spent a lot of his life trying to run away from Esau. That's family drama. Or how about David? We all know King David, right? The guy who slayed Goliath, who was a man after God's own heart, but David had family drama. As a matter of fact, when Samuel, the prophet, came to find the next king out of Jesse's family, Jesse was the father of David, Jesse didn't even ask David to be a part of the ceremony. Jesse thought David's the youngest. How could David ever be king? And so then David becomes king, and David eventually builds a family. But if you read the scriptures about David's life, David's kids were always at odds, always fighting with each other. Matter of fact, one of David's sons tried to kill David. And as you go through the scriptures, what you're going to find out is all these people who made such a difference for God came from families that were broken and disrupted and fractured. Remember what I talked about Jacob and Esau? Well, the scriptures in Hebrews actually specifically point out Jacob and Esau and the dysfunction of their family. And here's the thing that's crazy about those two and so many other people in this chapter. People like David. Jesus came from these families. Jesus is a descendant of their line. He came from their family, which, so all these things I'm talking about, like, this is family drama. This is what it means for families to be fractured. And despite all of this, Jesus came out of these lines, which means God can use any family situation, any mess, to do something great. I mean, the entire book of Hebrews in the New Testament is a record and celebration of faith. It's the fact that God knows your mess, and God knows that your family's fractured. And despite all of that, God doesn't run away from us. He actually uses us. See, that's why you can't count your family out. And that's why you can't count yourself out, because God has positioned you to be in your family for a reason, as God has put the people around you to be around you for a reason. And so what happens is when you can start to understand that God can use even broken families, you can start to believe that God can use yours. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie The Passion of the Christ. It came out back in the mid-2000s, and still today is kind of recognized as this really powerful film displaying the last hours of Jesus' life. And there's this moment in the film that's my absolute favorite, and it's this moment where Jesus is carrying the cross and he falls down, and his mother Mary runs to him, and he looks at her in the face and he says, "You see, I make all things new." It's one of my favorite parts in the scene because it actually points back to a verse that Jesus speaks about in Revelations when he says, "I make all things new." Like, this is what Jesus does. Jesus makes all things new, regardless of how fractured or how broken it is. Jesus makes all things new, which means this: your family with all its mistakes, Jesus can make them new. You with all of your mistakes, Jesus can make them new. So do not count your family out, and don't count yourself out, because God's doing something in your life, because redeeming and fixing things that are broken is what God does best. He takes the dysfunctional stuff and he uses it for good. So what if you went home today, and what if you treated your family like they could do better? What if you went home today, and what if you treated your family like they mattered? Because at the end of the day, here's the most important truth that we can land on: your family matters. Even when they're fractured, they matter. Your mom, she matters. Your dad, he matters. Your siblings, they matter. They are people created by God, loved by God. They have a purpose given to them by God. And you matter. So don't count your family out. Don't count yourself out. This is the moment that you need to press into your family. You need to love them. You need to forgive them. You need to work with them, and you need to believe that Jesus can make all things new.
That's it for today, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and click the links in the description below. Peace out, guys.